Hello everyone, so in this video we are looking at the distinction between inflation, disinflation and deflation. Now of course we've talked about inflation before, which is the goal of low and stable inflation, which is when prices rise. But what do these terms disinflation and deflation mean? That's what we need to understand from this video, and we need to understand the distinction between the three. This is a new dot point for 2023. So firstly, inflation is, like we've said previously, an increase, that's the key part, an increase in the general price level over time. So between September 2021 and September 2022, if prices rose by 7.3% or the inflation rate was 7.3%, that's inflation. What that means is that prices have increased over that time by 7.3%. The next one is disinflation. I think this is where students get confused. Disinflation is still a period of inflation. There is still inflation during disinflation. It's just that there is a decrease in the rate of inflation over that period. So for example, if we measured inflation at 3% over the first period, and in the next period it decreased to 2%, well, in both these scenarios, inflation is still existent, prices are still rising, in this case by 3%, and in this case by 2%. But what we need to understand is that over that period, the rate of increase has decreased. So another way of putting that is that prices are still increasing, they're just increasing at a slower rate, or we call it disinflation. Finally, deflation, and this is different again because this is when there is a decrease in the general price level over time. So this would be represented by a negative inflation figure. So if we had inflation from, let's call this June 21 to June 22, if we measured the inflation rate and it came out at negative 0.3%, what that means is from June to June, that prices have decreased by 0.3%, we would call that deflation because there's been a decrease in the general price level over time. Different to disinflation, which is just a decrease in the rate of inflation. Whoops, wrong way again. All right, I want you to pause now and I want you to look at this, this graph of quarterly inflation in Australia. And just to refresh on the y-axis here, this is the inflation rate, the rate of change in the CPI, the inflation rate. It's measured in quarterly terms over time, and I want you to identify inflation, disinflation, and deflation on this graph. What an amazing time to be studying economics, because over the past 4 years we've experienced all these three things. So let's pause and have a look. All right, so the first thing to think about is whenever inflation is whenever the rate of change, inflation, is above 0%, so if 0% is here, anytime the blue line's above this, it's inflation, right? We've just got to work out if there is disinflation during that inflation. And if it's below 0%, we're going to call that always going to be deflation. So of course, the first point here is our big point of deflation, which was during our COVID-19 crisis when the economy was shut down. So over that period, prices decreased, okay? Inflation, as I said, is anywhere above the line. So over this period, we have inflation. Anywhere above the 0% is inflation. But what we're actually looking for is, well, what we want to look for is disinflation, where there's a decrease in the rate of growth. And so at this point here, prices were rising by 1.5% over the quarter, which is a lot. And the next quarter, they decreased to 1%. They're still rising, just by less. So this is disinflation, this is disinflation, this is disinflation, this is disinflation. So whenever there's a decrease in the rate of growth, but not so that it's below zero. All right, hopefully that helped you distinguish between inflation, disinflation, and deflation. Bye for now.